Imagine you're having dinner with your family in your beautiful home when suddenly, emergency sirens pierce the night. Tsunami warning. Immediate evacuation required. Your heart races as you think about what to grab, how to keep your family safe. Then someone arrives at your door to coordinate the evacuation, and it's a young, polished woman who looks like she stepped out of a magazine cover. What would your first thought be? Would you trust her with your family's lives? Would you demand to see someone who looks more experienced? Tell us in the comments what you would do, because that's exactly what happened to residents of Pacific Palisades when Captain Lisa Morgan arrived to save their lives. They had no idea who they were really looking at. Before we continue this incredible story, tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe stories of quiet heroes deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly beyond the cliffs of Pacific Palisades as Captain Lisa Morgan's emergency vehicle pulled up to the neighborhood's Crisis Coordination Center. It was 3:47 p.m. on July 29, 2025, when the National Weather Service issued the most serious tsunami warning California had seen in decades. An 8.8 magnitude earthquake off the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia's far east had generated massive waves traveling toward the west coast at devastating speeds. Lisa stepped out of her vehicle, tablet in hand, wearing a crisp FEMA uniform that looked like it had just been pressed. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a professional bun. Her makeup was still perfect despite the emergency call, and she moved with the calm efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. The emergency staging area was chaos. Luxury cars jammed the narrow streets as residents attempted to load their belongings. Children cried, adults shouted conflicting information, and everyone seemed to be moving in different directions at once. Lisa's voice carried clearly over the noise as she announced her presence as the FEMA disaster coordinator. She explained that based on initial reports from Japan's Hokkaido region, where waves had already reached 40 centimeters with higher waves expected, and Hawaii, where waves had peaked at 1.5 meters, California's coast was facing imminent danger. The crowd that gathered around her was not impressed. These were some of the wealthiest people in California, accustomed to dealing with other successful, powerful individuals. What they saw was a woman who looked more suited for a corporate boardroom than a life-or-death emergency. Robert Chun, a tech billionaire whose mansion overlooked the ocean, muttered his disbelief that this polished young woman was their emergency coordinator. Margaret Thornfield, whose family had owned beachfront property for 3 generations, pushed to the front of the group, demanding to speak with someone who had actual emergency experience. Lisa maintained her calm and professional demeanor as she explained the severity of the situation. She referenced the latest updates from Russia's Severokurilsk region, where tsunami waves had already reached 3 to 5 meters in height, causing flooding and forcing mass evacuations. The parallels to their own situation were unmistakable. Dr. Harrison Wells, a prominent surgeon, expressed his concerns about trusting someone who appeared so inexperienced with such a critical situation. Jennifer Martinez, a prominent attorney, dismissed Lisa as someone who could read numbers off a screen but lacked real-world experience. What none of them knew was that Lisa's calm demeanor wasn't born from inexperience, but from surviving something far worse than what they were about to face. 15 years earlier, she had been a 23-year-old marine biology graduate student spending her winter break in Phuket, Thailand, working on coral reef research. December 26, 2004. The day that changed everything. Lisa had been standing in waist-deep water, collecting samples near Patong Beach, when she noticed the ocean receding rapidly, exposing coral formations that were normally underwater. Fish flopped helplessly on the sand as the sea pulled back further than she had ever seen. Her Thai research partner had grabbed her arm, recognizing the warning signs that Lisa was too inexperienced to understand. They had 20 minutes before the wave hit. Lisa spent those crucial minutes not running for high ground, but racing through beachside hotels, screaming warnings in broken Thai and English, pulling tourists from their breakfast tables, carrying children whose parents were too shocked to move. When the wave hit, Lisa was on the 3rd floor of a hotel that would be completely destroyed. She had saved 43 people that morning, but lost her research partner, who had gone back for one more family and never made it out. The experience had changed her life's direction completely. She abandoned marine biology and dedicated herself to disaster preparedness and emergency management. She earned degrees in emergency planning, studied under the world's leading tsunami experts, and joined FEMA with one goal: ensuring no one else would face what she had faced unprepared. But standing in Pacific Palisades, facing a crowd of skeptical residents, Lisa couldn't share any of this. Her job was to save lives, not prove her credentials. Lisa addressed specific residents by name, demonstrating knowledge of their properties that wasn't publicly available. She told Chun about his Tesla collection's vulnerability in his garage, informed Thornfield about her family's antique collection on the ground floor, and provided detailed elevation measurements that showed exactly which areas would be underwater. Her tablet buzzed with updates from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. Reports from Japan indicated that Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant workers had been evacuated as a precautionary measure, though no abnormalities had been reported. Scientists and officials warned that tsunami risk could continue for several more hours. Lisa announced that evacuation buses were positioned at the community center, located at a safe elevation outside the inundation zone. She stressed that they had limited time to make their decisions, as wave arrival times were being constantly updated based on real-time ocean monitoring data. Dr. Wells challenged her authority, questioning what would happen if residents refused to believe the threat was as serious as she claimed. Lisa looked him directly in the eyes, and for the first time, the crowd saw something beyond her polished exterior. There was a depth of experience, a weight of memory that couldn't be faked. Lisa's response referenced her experience 15 years earlier in Thailand, explaining that the ocean doesn't care about wealth, status, or skepticism. It only cares about physics and time, and they were running out of both. Something in her voice made the crowd fall silent. The authority wasn't coming from her uniform or her title. It was coming from somewhere much deeper. As the residents finally began to move with new urgency, Margaret Thornfield lingered behind, asking quietly about Thailand. Lisa confirmed she had survived the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami, one of the deadliest natural disasters in modern history. As word spread through the crowd about Lisa's background, the resistance evaporated completely. People who had questioned her authority minutes before now hung on her every instruction. They realized they weren't just dealing with a government official, but with someone who had looked death in the face and lived to help others avoid the same fate. The evacuation proceeded with military precision. Lisa coordinated with Coast Guard helicopters, managed traffic flow to the evacuation buses, and personally ensured that elderly residents and families with small children were prioritized. As the last bus pulled away from the danger zone, Lisa remained behind with a small team to monitor the incoming waves. From their elevated position, they watched as powerful walls of water crashed into the coastline below, flooding exactly the areas she had predicted based on her analysis of the Kamchatka earthquake data. The luxury mansions that had taken decades to build were damaged in minutes. But every single person who had questioned her qualifications was safe, evacuated to high ground, alive to rebuild their homes and their assumptions about what a hero looks like. Later, as residents were allowed to return and survey the damage, Robert Chin approached Lisa at the command center, offering an enormous apology and acknowledging that she had saved his life and the lives of everyone in the community. Margaret Thornfield asked why Lisa didn't lead with her survivor credentials, noting that if people knew what she had survived and accomplished, they would listen immediately. Lisa's response emphasized that the ocean doesn't care about resumes, and neither should survival. The only thing that matters is getting people to safety. Everything else is just noise. This story reminds us that quiet heroes often carry the heaviest experiences in silence. They don't demand recognition or respect. They simply do what needs to be done. Captain Lisa Morgan's calm presence that day wasn't weakness or inexperience. It was strength forged in tragedy and refined through years of service. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who believes that true expertise isn't always visible on the surface. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because every quiet hero's story deserves to be heard, and every act of service deserves to be remembered.